Part 6. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 51. Gretel is not very surprised that his mental power reaches the standard of a mage apprentice. After all, he has even released healing skills. According to the level of priests, he should be at least a priest apprentice. Although the power used is different, the level of mental power required to release the spell should be similar. However, the world perceived by the spiritual power, earth, water, fire, wind. Is this what he perceives, or is it how the world is understood by magicians according to the description in Basic Meditation? Born in New China and raised under the red flag. In her previous life, she received modern natural science education from an early age. It was really hard for Gretel to agree that this world is made up of earth, water, fire, and wind. After all, he has read medical physics. What are the four fundamental forces: strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, electromagnetic force, universal gravitation? The first three can be unified into one interaction: what geometric optics, wave optics, special relativity, quantum mechanics. After all, he got a score of 93. Although I forgot all about it after taking the exam. However, as a time traveler's benefit, he can now carry it again. When I thought of this, the textbook from that year rose up in front of me, and I opened the pages one by one. Those definitions, theorems, formulas, hypotheses, flew out in a mighty manner, making Greet feel dizzy, nauseous, and want to vomit on the spot. The meditation environment was shaken violently. Greet quickly waved away the textbook and calmed down. When Greet used his mental power to observe his surroundings again, he was surprised to find that the world he observed with his mental power had actually changed. A dark starry sky appeared above the head, the stars were bright, and there was an inexplicable power connected with the earth beneath their feet. The four elements seem to still be there, but they are no longer as distinct as before. The distance between fire and wind, fire and water is a little blurred. So is this meditation environment the world I perceive or the world I understand? Greet was a little confused. Fortunately, these changes did not affect him, or in other words, the gain in mental power fed back to him in the meditation environment did not increase or decrease due to the changes. Then, let's ignore it for now. Greet put aside his doubts, calmed down, and began to exercise his mental strength. According to the method given in Basic Meditation, he meditated until his head felt slightly swollen, then he fell on the bed, closed his eyes and fell asleep. I completely stopped reading the vocabulary lists and other things I copied during the day. Lack of sleep will affect the reflux of cerebrospinal fluid. The beta-amyloid protein produced by brain cells cannot be taken away and decomposed in time, and will be deposited in the brain, increasing the incidence of Alzheimer's disease. He doesn't want it? Who knows if improved mental power can replace brain cells? What if it can't? After waking up from the sleep, when she woke up the next morning, Greet's eyes lit up as soon as she opened the notes she had taken. He remembers everything he copied yesterday. Didn't forget a word. Learn to meditate and improve your mental strength. Are there any benefits? His progress in memorizing words has been accelerated again. I can learn magic sooner. With such joy, Gretel moved a little briskly when copying books in the magic tower. Unfortunately, hand speed is not so easy to follow. I copied it for a day and visually checked the progress, which was 5%. Oh, Master Herman also gave him a task before, asking him to copy 2 copies. If you calculate it like this, the progress will be doubled instantly, only 2.5%. No sense of achievement at all. Greet picked up his backpack, rubbed his wrists, and walked out leisurely. Before taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped. Master Elliot was leaning on the stairs going up, playing with a small bag in his hands, looking at him with a smile. How was the copying? It's too slow. Gretel answered truthfully. To be honest, his current hand speed has seriously slowed down his brain speed. If he didn't copy and just recited, it would be possible to learn the words in 10 days, but if he had to copy them one by one, he wouldn't be able to do it in 20 days. It's over. Then you have to work harder. The teacher is waiting for you. Erit gave a serious word of encouragement, turned around and walked away. He looked serious, but Gretel didn't know why, but he always felt like this guy was gloating about his misfortune. Thinking of this, he suddenly had an idea. Mr. Elliot, is the master in a hurry? How to say? As expected, Elliot stopped. The reaction was so fast, it was as if he had been waiting for the sentence. Greet immediately chased after him. If you are in a hurry, I have a way, which may speed up the copying. However, I need your help. He paused here deliberately, looking at the other party eagerly, but said nothing. Erit raised his chin. What are you going to do? Find a few more people to copy. No, it's not. Are you planning to live here and copy every day and night? Let me tell you first, this is not possible. You are not a mage apprentice and you are not allowed to live in the tower all the time. No. What is that? Don't be secretive, just tell me. Greet tried hard not to laugh. Mr. Erit was really competitive. He had to guess what he was going to tell him first. Perhaps all mages are like this, quite confident in their own intelligence. He lowered his head, made a respectful expression, and asked for advice. Mr. Elliot. I would like to ask first, is there a spell to copy books? Yes, there is. What? What do you want to do? It's good to have it. Gretel raised his head, looked directly into Master Elliot's eyes, and spoke. I would like to ask you to make a copy of magic letters. Then, I will cut the pages and glue them together in alphabetical order. After finishing, you can copy it again, and Master Herman's request will be completed. Elliot was silent for a moment, and then again. He suddenly laughed and stretched his hand forward. Good idea. Chinjui 10 gold coins. No, you still want me to give you money? Greet was dumbfounded. Elliot looked at him gaping and laughed happily. You need to pay someone to perform spells, don't you know? The casting materials required for the copying spell are paper and ink. For the sake of copying books for the magic tower, I will waive the material fee. Oh, the consultation fee for the question just now will also be saved for you. I'll give you a half discount for 2 rounds of copying techniques, a total of 10 gold coins. Once the reward is received, cast the spell immediately. Greet was speechless. Yesterday, the man who knew the language was Elliot, who took the initiative to cast spells because he wanted to be lazy and did not ask him for money. Now he is asking people to help cast spells, and it is only natural that he spend money. In the game, speeding up construction costs money. The problem is that 10 gold coins are already half of his current net worth. Take it out and exchange it for 10 days and a half. It seems that the price/performance ratio is really bad. Boy, you just want to save time. Don't worry, copy slowly, memorize slowly, it will be good for you if you have a solid knowledge of magic words. Wizard Elliot laughed and left. I don't have much left to save, so I'm shivering and trying to type. Dear friends, please encourage me. Please collect it. Please recommend. Please review the book. Asking for various. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 52. Greet's opportunism failed, so he could only endure it and copied the book honestly for 2 days. On the 3rd day, he went to the magic tower again. Before the horses stopped in front of the magic tower, he heard a familiar sound. Boom. It's still the 4th floor of the magic tower, it's still the same window, it's still the same figure in the robe, dancing and flying out along a parabolic trajectory. Gretel. This time he rode much slower. Arriving at the landing point, Elliot was indeed staggering again, floating downwards in disgrace. As he landed, he cursed. "You bastard, if you can't say anything, just blow up someone. You're not afraid of blowing yourself up. Hey, why are you here? Mr. Elliot." Gretel looked at him helplessly. "Let me see if you need help." Elliot wanted him to get lost. "Unfortunately, the last time I flew out of the Mage Tower, I only came back with Gretel's help. Otherwise, I don't know how long I would have to jump on one foot. At this time, I couldn't say anything harsh, so I could only get up and walk back. He doesn't cause trouble, but those who do cause trouble don't let him go." There was a clang on the fourth floor of the Mage Tower, and a window was opened. A young man with bright blonde hair stuck his head out and shouted in a strange accent. "Come if you can." Elliot glanced upward, said nothing, and continued walking with his head down. Gretel accompanied him around a quarter of the circle. Seeing that the boy's blonde hair had disappeared from sight, he asked in a low voice. "Can't beat it?" "Who said we can't beat him?" Eric's voice suddenly rose. "That brat and I are on the same level. How could we not beat him?" Gretel said nothing. Elliot took a few more steps, his shoulders slumped, and he sighed. "It's just a little bit close, humph. He comes from a famous family, he has the best meditation method since he was a child, and his mental power is stronger than mine. It's just a little bit short. I can cast 4 magic spells in a row like him." Meditation method. Gretel's heart beat heavily and he immediately took the opportunity to ask, "What kind of meditation method is better?" "Boy, are you trying to take advantage again?" Elliot raised an eyebrow at him. Without waiting for Gretel to bow his head and make a gesture of repentance, he sighed. "Since you still know how to come and pick me up, let me tell you. Anyway, this is not a secret. With your mental strength, it will be a matter of time before you become a mage. It is not difficult to know these things." Gretel immediately perked up his ears. Master Elliot said slowly. "Boy, listen up. The meditation method is divided into 3 parts: core, shell, and thread. The core is to create a spiritual core, the more like yourself, the better, so that you can get support from the body. Shell is to shape an outer shell. The better the shape, the better it can attract and filter the power that is useful to you, and at the same time resist the impact from the outside. Thread teaches you how to use your spiritual power to perceive and influence the world. Good meditation rules have unique techniques in these 3 aspects. For ordinary mages, they should either use the basic meditation book, or learn from a teacher or exchange it with the Magic Council. It sounds like some basic theoretical stuff. Greet was engrossed and wanted to listen again, but Master Elliot paused and stopped talking. "No yet? Or is the charging part next?" Greet hurriedly asked. "Mr. Elliot, the spiritual core must be like yourself. Does this mean that every detail must be as similar as possible?" "Yeah." Elliot sighed. "But who can do it? It's not easy to shape the facial features, limbs, how many bones, and where the internal organs are. Even the details, I don't know." "By the way, you ask this do what?" Under the morning light, in front of the Mage Tower, Greet stood upright holding the reins of his horse, raising a confident smile. "I think I may know, the details of the structure of the spiritual core, what it should look like." "You?" Elliot's eyebrows jumped. He grabbed Gretel and hurried out, dragging him until he was next to the stable before letting go and standing still. "What do you know? You can't even meditate." "I meditated last night," Greet insisted. He broke away from Elliot's pull and jumped sideways to avoid a pile of horse dung at his feet. "Yesterday afternoon, you released a language mastery for me. I used this time to memorize basic meditation on the bookshelf and tried it after I got home. First, I constructed the spiritual core according to the human body framework in the book, and then corrected the details according to my own knowledge. After the correction, I feel that my mental strength has become much more solid." Elliot frowned. He stared at Greet, his body subconsciously leaned forward, and his fists clenched loudly. The way he looked at people was as if knives were flying out of his eyes. "Cut Gretel open and take a good look at his spiritual core." Gretel stood firm and let him watch. 1 minute, 2 minutes, Elliot was suddenly shocked, his eyes as if he had just woken up from a dream. He took a step back, stared at Greet with new eyes, and breathed out in a long breath. "Yes, yes, you are a healer, you already know what the human body looks like, you know." Elliot groaned and murmured, with all kinds of thoughts swirling in his mind. Order him, force him, trick him, anyway, this little guy Gretel has just started to learn magic, he doesn't understand anything, and he can't even get 10 gold coins out of his pocket. Give him some benefits, or help him perform a few copying spells as he requested, he will definitely be willing to tell. If you are afraid of being exposed, tell the teacher about the meditation method, everyone will get the benefits, and we will definitely be able to keep the secret together. No knowledge comes without a price. And meditation, something related to the foundation of a mage's power, is even more valuable than many spells. In the Mage Tower, all spells from level 1 to level 3 are disclosed to the mages in the tower, however, except for the introductory book Basic Meditation, there is not even a single word about the meditation method. That was a price he couldn't afford. He stared at Greed blankly, feeling war between heaven and man in his heart. It is of course easy to use some means to obtain the meditation method, but. However, not to mention that the other party is a healer, he is a person who has stepped into the door of spellcasting like him, so he cannot take advantage of him in such a clever way. The morality and perseverance in Elliot's heart did not allow him to do such a thing himself. Elliot hesitated for a while, gritted his teeth, turned around and left. Observe the human body as a healer, and then modify the spiritual core according to the observed details. This idea alone, an idea that unilaterally claims to be effective, is worth all his money in exchange for it. No matter how many things there were, even if Gretel was willing to tell him, he couldn't exchange them for anything of equal value. The young mage walked very quickly, his black robe billowing, almost creating a big wave. Greet smiled slightly from behind, watching the black-robed mage who had been taking care of him flee and seemed to leave. After he took 3 or 5 steps out, he shouted, "Hey!" "No time," the man in front said rudely without looking back, as if he was afraid of regretting it. Gretel smiled even more happily. "Don't try it yourself, I'm telling you." With a plop, Elliot's feet smashed the garlic on the ground flatly. "Thank you for the reward of 100 starting coins. Another day when the collection of old books outnumbers the new ones. When will those collections be updated with new books? Please collect, recommend, book reviews, and all kinds of things. It's a new week, a new ranking is coming, please support." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 53. Mage Elliot climbed up in embarrassment. He looked disgraced, with a streak of nosebleed on his face, and there was a ball of horse dung stuck to the front of the mage's robe. But he didn't notice it at all. He stared into Gretel's eyes for a long time and sighed. "Thank you, Gretel, but I can't learn." "Can't learn? Why?" Gretel was surprised. "Are you afraid that you won't be able to learn?" "I can explain it more simply. I'm the best at popular science and stuff. I explain the symptoms and surgical plans to patients and their families, and I always explain them in a way that they understand." He took a step forward. Master Elliot immediately took a step back, his eyes reluctant to leave, but full of regret and sadness. I can't learn. The rules of the mage, any knowledge and service have a price. And I can't afford the price of this meditation method. But, you helped me so much before dash. You've told me enough. Elliot's eyes were soft and he looked deeply at Gretel. Then, as if he was afraid that he would regret it, he gritted his teeth and turned around. I'll cast the scribe spell for you when I get back. To understand the language, if you need it, no problem. But don't tell me any more, I can't afford it. Greet froze on the spot. Elliot didn't speak to him just now. He asked himself that. It was understandable. As a mage, there is always some pride, whatever. However, despite his own persuasion, he still insisted on adhering to the principle of equal exchange and would never waver. You can just go on credit first and then pay in installments. Gretel regretfully wanted to throw the bowl. The more Master Elliot declined, the more he wanted to teach the other person something. It was nothing special anyway, he could have learned it as a medical student in his previous life. Under the entanglement, he suddenly came to wisdom. That, the price I need is not what you think. What? I made an oath when I was learning this knowledge. Once he started, Greet's words became smoother and smoother. Anyway, the existence of the oath is real, and the process of swearing is also real. At most, when he took the oath, it had been revised n times, not the earliest original version. I have sworn to teach the knowledge I have learned without reservation to my teacher's children, my own children, and my disciples who are willing to abide by the same oath. So, as long as you are willing to swear dash. Say yes quickly. It's not that you helped me a lot before, so I won't teach you these things. Greet quite felt that he was a bit anxious, like an emperor but a eunuch. However, Master Elliot thought for a long time, raised his head, and his first sentence was, "What kind of oath?" Okay. In the magical world, you should be more careful about your oaths, otherwise you won't even know how you died. Gretel took a deep breath and began to recite the revised Hippocratic Oath, or in other words, the Hippocratic Oath adapted to the characteristics of this world. I am willing to do my best to the best of my ability and judgment, abide by the creed of seeking benefits for patients, and curb all depraved and harmful behaviors. I shall not give harmful drugs to others, and I will not provide guidance in this regard. Even if someone asks for it, he will not do it. I will treat all patients equally, regardless of whether they are men or women, nobles or slaves, and seek happiness for my patients. I will check myself and refrain from all kinds of harmful behaviors, especially seduction. In the process of my treatment, whatever I see or hear, whether it is directly related to my medical practice or not, I will resolutely keep it secret. Elliot listened with rapt attention, becoming increasingly astonished the more he listened. After hearing the end, I was lost in thought for a while, and then sighed. The senior who established this rule must be a sage. Of course. Hippocrates. Not only him, but Bianke, Huatuo, Zhang Zhongjing, Sun Simiao, Li Shizhen, and even the great doctors of New China, each one is a sage who is qualified to enjoy the Sheneng Temple. Following Greet's guidance, the young mage made an oath seriously, a modified version of the Hippocratic Oath. Then, the two of them sneaked into the small room opposite the library like thieves. Greet spread out a large piece of paper and began to draw a diagram of the human body. Skeleton. Muscle. Blood vessels, heart. Blood flow direction, aorta, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Greet lay on the table and drew for a full hour. I was painting and talking at the same time. My wrists were sore from painting and my mouth was dry from talking. The drawings were changed one after another, covering the entire desktop from left to right. This time he really exhausted his painting skills as a doctor. In the past, I used to draw schematic diagrams and simple drawings, as long as they could explain things clearly. It was never required to have correct shapes and proportions. Anyway, I usually just draw a few organs, or a few bones, etc. The patients and their families can understand best, but they can't understand. If you don't understand, then deepen your understanding through treatment. Unlike this time, it is to be sold for money, no, it is to exchange knowledge for information, and the quality must be guaranteed. Ouch, my old waist. Gretel straightened up and slapped his lower back with his backhand. On the left, Master Elliot was lying on the table in the same posture as him, squinting his eyes, and his face was almost touching the painting. If he hadn't stood up just now, the upper bodies of the two people would have formed a right angle. Hey, if you lie down a little further, you will get into the painting. Greet wanted to laugh a little. He asked Elliot habitually, or rather, as he had asked patients and family members thousands of times in previous lives. Is there something you don't understand? No respond. Master Elliot was lying on the latest schematic diagram of the human body, looking at it in a mesmerizing way, as if he had been possessed. Greet waited patiently for a minute, and another minute, and finally gave up waiting and began to roll up his sleeves and copy the word list. After copying about half a page, Master Elliot suddenly jumped up and ran out like a rabbit hit by an arrow. Gretel. Hello. Hello. Human body diagram. Don't abandon it. Elliot soon returned. He held an ink bottle in his left hand and a large roll of paper in his right hand, slamming it on the table. Without any explanation, he took out Magical Philology from Gretel's hand, pressed the book with one hand, and murmured the incantation. There was a flash of light, and the blank roll of paper instantly turned into a thick stack of copies. Scribe, completed. Wow, that's very good. Gretel's eyes lit up. He smiled and nodded to Master Elliot, nodding to his back. The young mage grabbed the schematic diagram on the table and rushed out again. The speed was faster this time. While running, he tucked the drawings tightly into his arms, as if he was afraid of being seen. Ah! Hope he remembers it clearly. He had studied systematic anatomy for a full 120 hours. Just this stack of paper, even if it is streamlined, it is not easy to memorize it in one breath. Greet smiled and began to work. With scissors in the left hand and glue in the right hand, cut the copy made by the copying technique into strips and paste them on the white paper in order. After being busy all day, when I walked out of the Mage Tower in the evening, there was a bang above my head, and another person flew out. Gretel raised his head reflexively. From the window on the 4th floor, the boy who had just blasted away Elliot in the morning was thrown into the air, dancing and cursing. Elliot! You don't follow the rules. Greet stood at the door of the Mage Tower, facing up to the sky, and slowly opened his mouth. Isn't it right? The effect of this meditation method is so fast. Today, Monday, I didn't spend a dime, and my ranking rose from 37th to 33rd on the new light novel list. Thank you all. Please continue to support. Please collect it. Please recommend. Asking for a monthly ticket. Please review the book. Asking for all kinds of cries. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 54. With the mental bonus brought by the meditation method and the help of the copying technique, Greet's progress instantly accelerated a lot. It only took him 2 days to complete the collage of the dictionary, and then he couldn't wait to take out basics of spells to see what magic he could learn so far. The answer is, all level 0 magic. Basics of spells states clearly at the outset, as long as the mental power reaches the apprentice level, new spellcasters can learn all level 0 magic. It sounds very generous. However, Gretel didn't even need to turn the page when he saw an annotation written in red pen on the edge of this line. 0 level magic, also known as sleight of hand. Congratulations, you can be a street performer from now on. Gretel. He took a deep breath, then another, and closed his eyes. Adjust your emotions and repeat silently. There is no useless magic, only useless mages. There is no useless magic, only useless mages. I read it until my mood stabilized, then I opened my eyes and continued to look down. According to Basics of Spells, a mage apprentice can cast between 1-50 level spells every day depending on his mental power. A beginner can only cast one, and a high-level magic apprentice who is about to break through to a formal mage will not be able to cast more than one level magic spell every day. There are potions to make up for the consumption, otherwise up to 5 can be released. Generally speaking, if you master 3 or more 0-level magics and can cast 5 spells a day, you can become a first-level mage. After talking about this, the author of Basics of Spells pointed out in a very serious tone. In view of the fact that after a breakthrough, mental power will increase significantly, and it will be more efficient to learn low-level magic. Generally speaking, it is not recommended for a mage with sufficient qualifications to learn too many tricks during the apprenticeship stage. You can only choose 3 to learn in the early stage. Gretel, who thinks this way, doesn't think that he is the one without qualifications at all. A time traveler, killing gods when God blocks him, killing Buddha when Buddha blocks him, breaking through to the top-level mage, having access to level 9 magic and a bunch of self-created magic. This has always been the treatment he deserves. Besides, didn't he understand the healing technique on the first day he came here and escort the priest's apprentice on the spot? Gretel was full of confidence, flipping through the pages of Basics of Spells and starting to pick and choose. There are not many 0-level magics recorded in this book, only 8 or 9. However, Gretel was still a bit dazzled as he looked around. Reading magic can be used to decipher magical writings on objects, books, scrolls, weapons, etc. This spell is obviously the first tool for learning magic. The problem is that it requires transparent crystal or prisms as casting materials. Gretel touched all over his body and could only put it down first. Dancing lights, which creates a light source, light, which makes an object glow like a torch, spark, which ignites a microscopic flammable object, freeze ray, which shoots an icy ray that causes damage or can be used to make a popsicle. It seems that these are all practical little magic tricks that are necessary for home travel. The mage's hands use telekinesis to move a lightweight object at close range. Secret marks and magic tricks are specifically mentioned in Basics of Spells. These two are common tricks for mage apprentices to get started, and they are the basics of the basics. There is even a note in ink next to it: if you can't even learn them, give up, you are not suitable to be a mage. Greet looked over page after page. Suddenly, the hand he was flipping through the dictionary trembled, and he froze there, trembling slightly as if he had been struck by lightning. Level 0 spell, Detect Magic. Detects magical aura on an object or in a specific area. Both name and utility are unremarkable. However, as he read line by line, Gretel read a line of text at the end of the introduction that made his heart surge. This spell can penetrate obstacles. However, 1 foot of stone, 1 inch of common metal, 1 thin piece of lead, 3 feet of wood or earth can block detection. This is. Gretel's heart was pounding. It has a penetrating effect and will be blocked by lead and other substances to varying degrees. Seeing this, his knowledge, his intuition, and every brain cell in his brain were shouting loudly. X-ray. X-ray. Surgical examination tools, X-ray, B ultrasound, CT, MRI, the cheapest and earliest among them, here I come. Greet did not hesitate, pulled out a piece of paper, and added detection magic to the interpretation list as a priority. It is not difficult to learn 0-level magic. Gretel concentrated his mind and perceived the wonderful world that he had touched during meditation. When the whole person's spirit entered a state of emptiness, and the earth, water, fire, wind, earth, and starry sky floated slightly. He made spell-casting gestures according to the description in Basics of Spells and recited the spell word by word. As soon as the spell was spoken, Gretel felt his mental power and sound waves gently fluctuate. The inexplicable power touched during meditation was also disturbed by this, and changed little by little under the pull of mental power. Gretel quickly concentrated on it, used his mental power to guide the meditation world, and began to outline the rune patterns according to the book. 1 stroke, 2 strokes. Damn it! Crooked. The runes in the meditation scene trembled and collapsed. Feeling a little tired mentally, Greet sighed leisurely. Learning magic is really not that easy. A new mage apprentice can only cast 1 spell a day. In other words, if you can't make money, you only have 1 chance to try it every day. How many times does it take to try a new magic to succeed? 3 times? 5 times? 10 times? If it is done 10 times, then 10 days have passed. It will take more time to master it proficiently. With 3 magic spells, 1 or 2 months will pass in an instant. No wonder, in Basics of Spells, it is not recommended for mage apprentices to learn too much magic. Greet was a little unwilling. He closed his eyes for a moment and felt carefully, how many more times can I try with my mental strength? If his intuition is correct, probably 2 or 3 more times. So, I started out as a high-level mage apprentice, or at least a mid-level apprentice. Is this a benefit for time travelers or a benefit for priest apprentices? No matter what, just use it. Greet pumped his fist excitedly, then calmed down and started trying again. This time there was great progress, and the runes were outlined until the 9th stroke, which was only 1 step away from the completion of the figure. Greet gritted his teeth and tried again. This time, a faint magical aura lit up in the vision enhanced by meditation. Success. Greet suppressed her excitement and walked towards the bookshelf that glowed with magic. The spiritual light is very dim, not much brighter than the oil lamp at home. It is probably a small magic like repelling insects and dehumidifying at most. Gretel suppressed his mind, stretched out his right hand, and closed it on the light group. It seems like you can see the faint light coming through, but it seems like there isn't any. Is the aura too dim? Gretel thought for a moment and ran out of the library. He rushed to the 2nd floor, and as soon as he stepped onto the platform at the turn of the stairs, someone shouted on his head. Okay, why are you up here? The protagonist starts to let himself go. Everyone applaud him. Croak, croak, croak. Please collect, recommend, and review books. Please give me a monthly pass, it's almost the end of the month. Don't hide your monthly pass. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 55. Greet stopped and came to his senses. Look at the one who speaks. No one was seen. Lower your head again. 15 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, on the floor in front, the naughty kid I saw a few days ago was jumping up and down with his face red with anger, stretching his arms and waving in front of his eyes. Here. Who are you looking at? It's this little guy again. Greet had a headache, nodded vaguely to him, and walked up. The naughty kid chased after him closely, shouting non-stop. What are you doing up there? Hey, what are you doing up there? That's where official magicians stay. You're not even an apprentice. Above the 2nd floor of the magic tower, Gretel really wasn't qualified to come up before. The 1st floor of this magic tower is the hall and library. The mage apprentice, that is, the naughty kid. Even though he is only 10 years old, he has already entered the door of magic lives on the 2nd floor, and the official mage lives on the 3rd floor. The 4th floor is used for alchemy and experimenting with magic spells. The 5th floor is the host of the mage tower, the residence of Master Gearman, and the hub of the Mage Tower is also located there. Starting from the second floor, no matter how rich or powerful ordinary people are, they are not allowed to enter. Gretel was not qualified to go up. But now, just now, he successfully released the first magic. He is already a mage apprentice. Go to the second floor, of course. Go up to the third floor and ask a familiar mage to ask some questions. That's not a big problem, ha 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 ha. The little boy chased, and yelled all the way, which made the stairs buzz. Greet wished he could physically silence him. As soon as he paused, he heard a loud roar coming from the third floor. Absolutely not. What's wrong? A familiar voice yelled back louder, I've almost succeeded. Why should I stop my research and ask you to buy alchemy materials? Is it Master Elliot? What is he arguing with? Gretel immediately perked up his ears. The other party slapped the table. What about you? No materials are needed to improve the spell? No scrolls. I have made something after all. What about you? How many scrolls have been copied these days? Let's wait for the Magic Council to come for the assessment and see what you say. I'm fine. Hey, no problem. Just rely on the book that the little guy copied. Don't be kidding, the words are still the original words, just rearranged. Can the Magic Council appreciate this result? Hey, this seems to be talking about my dictionary. Greet was stunned for a moment, and quietly moved his feet back 2 steps to avoid being embarrassed by the mages. Unexpectedly, the stair door opened with a bang, and the blond boy who had been blown away from the window a few days ago came out angrily. When he saw them, he immediately became furious. What are you doing here? This is where you came from. He insisted on coming up. Before Greet could answer, the boy had already rushed to speak with a sharp voice. I didn't even stop him. Mr. Karen, this guy is not even a mage apprentice, so he has no qualifications to come up. You. Master Karen's angry eyes immediately turned around. He stretched out his hand and pointed at Gretel, and the light on his fingertips flickered. He was obviously angry and wanted to take it out on Gretel. As for whether this magic spell is ice or fire, wind or earth, Greet's knowledge is shallow and he really can't tell at a glance. Oops. The stairs are narrow and there is no place to hide. Gretel didn't want to be a punching bag at all. Before the spell could be used, he became angry and shouted loudly. Mr. Elliot. I have learned my first magic. If I have any questions, please ask. Learned magic? The light on Master Karen's fingertips flashed and then went out. Once you learn magic, you become a mage apprentice. There is nothing wrong with going to the third floor of the Mage Tower occasionally. Besides, they were looking for Elliot. He snorted coldly and went upstairs alone to continue his alchemy experiment. Unexpectedly, as soon as he took a step forward, he heard the little boy shouting. You know magic? Impossible. You couldn't read a few days ago. Master Karen stopped. In the room, Master Elliot has already raised his voice. Gretel? Come in. You couldn't read a few days ago and you learned magic today? Master Karen became curious and followed him in. Elliot was collecting scattered papers and pens, his anger still lingering. When he saw Gretel, his expression softened a bit, and he was a little happy. Did you cast the spell successfully? What was the first thing you learned? Do you have any questions for me? He must be bragging, the little boy pulled Master Karen to complain. If you insist on running up, you will catch me and say that you are a mage apprentice. You are lying. I saw it with my own eyes. It was clear that a few days ago, I couldn't even read the magic words. Is that so? The blond boy looked at Elliot inquiringly. Elliot was also a little embarrassed. That boy is the grandson of Master Herman's mentor. The Archmage inspected the surrounding magic towers on behalf of the Magic Council. He thought his grandson was naughty, so he left him under the care of his own disciples. With such status, although the two of them are official mages, they are not in a position to reprimand this child rashly. Elliot had to pretend not to hear. He coughed and turned to Gretel. "What kind of magic did you learn? Release it again and let me see." "Yes," detecting magic as soon as Gretel's answer came out, the little boy sneered and laughed louder. "Detect magic? It's not you who has the final say whether this spell is successful or not. You won't use it to prevaricate others, will you?" "George," Master Karen shouted. He immediately turned to Gretel and ordered. "Let's do this. You cast a spell here and see how many magic items there are in the hall. As long as you name 3 of them, or point out the strongest one, your spell casting will be considered successful." Greet bowed slightly and agreed. He took 2 steps back, pressed his back against the wall, expanded his field of vision as much as possible, and concentrated on casting spells. The hall is only about 30 square meters, with 6 wooden chairs surrounding a large rectangular table, occupying most of the space in the hall. There are chandeliers overhead, tapestries on the walls, and a fireplace at the end of the hall. At first glance, the furnishings are not much different from the library on the ground floor. Greet recited the incantation softly. Following his voice, deep and shallow magical auras lit up during meditation, ranging from dazzling white and earthy yellow to light green and deep blue. Looking at it again, it's amazing. That naughty kid, the robe on his body, the ring on his head, and the necklace on his chest were all shining brightly, much brighter than the furnishings in the room. The 3rd generation of Fa is so terrible. Gretel silently swallowed his resentment towards the naughty child, moved his eyes, and reported the magic items one by one. Chandelier, tapestry on the left, fireplace. Although the aura is very dim and the level of enchantment is very low, probably similar to the bookshelf downstairs, there are 3 pieces. He pointed out an item and the boy opened his mouth. By the end, both eyes and mouth were wide open, forming 3 O shapes. "It's impossible, you actually. How's it going? Is there someone who can learn faster than you?" The blond boy just wanted to add insult to injury. He bent down and asked a question deliberately in the little boy's ear. The little boy was stunned for a while and shouted, "I do not believe." He turned around and ran out of the hall, slamming the stair door. There was a bang, and the vase on the table shook. "Vase! Vase!" Gretel's heart skipped a beat. He rushed forward, pulled out the flowers in the vase, and poured them out. A gem rolled out of the vase, and the magic detection field of view shone brightly. Gretel reached forward and enveloped the light. As far as the eye could see, it was still hazy. Another day when collections of old books grow faster than new ones. Worry. Continue to ask for collections, please invest, ask for recommendations, ask for book reviews. It's the end of the month, so remember to vote if you still have your monthly tickets. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 56. Gretel was summoned within half an hour. Magical research is common, mage apprenticeship is not. A mage tower can only train a single digit of mage apprentices in a year. If you are unlucky, you may even have no harvest for several consecutive years. Master Gearman, whose research has hit a bottleneck, is happy to summon the newly minted mage apprentices, so that he can at least change his mind. After his confirmation, Greet's treatment was immediately upgraded to the level of a mage apprentice. New magic robe. Single room in the mage tower. Paper, pens, candles, and complete sets of personal supplies. In fact, the servant guarding the door held 5 silver coins with a panic look on his face and wanted to return them to Gretel. The reason is that the magician's mount can be stored in the tower, and no more money can be charged. Although he didn't ask for the money, Greet still maintained a good mood along the way. He entered the city, returned the horses to the military camp, and then returned to his home. Along the way, people kept greeting him. "Little Greet, you're back. Little Greet, with this robe of yours, have you become a mage? Little Greet, congratulations." Gretel answered with a smile. It was already getting late at this time, and little lights began to light up in the wooden houses on the roadside. Greet walked to the door of the house and was about to turn around and take out the key to open the door, when suddenly someone rushed over from the side alley. After a shoulder-to-shoulder collision, Greet took half a step back and said ouch. The person who rushed over also said ouch. He retreated further than Greet, his feet stumbled, and he almost fell. With a raised eyebrow, a fierce light appeared, and a black fist was raised. "You!" He suddenly stopped and looked at Greet's robe, staring at the staff pattern on the cuff. Without saying a word, he turned around and ran away. Gretel looked at his cuff silently. There are other benefits to becoming a mage apprentice. Not bad. Gretel came in humming. The man who hit him ran away for a long time. When he saw that no one was chasing him, he took a detour to the tavern. There was a man waiting at the back door of the tavern. His face smelled of alcohol. When he saw him coming, he asked, "How was it? How was the fight? You want to kill me? That boy is a mage apprentice." "Mage apprentice," the drunkard was surprised. "Are you wrong? This kid has only been to the mage tower for a few days. How could I be wrong? That boy is wearing a long robe with a wand embroidered on the cuffs. I can see it clearly." The drunkard pondered. The guy who bumped into someone had already stretched out his palm, spread his fingers, and poked him right under his eyelids. "Give me money. You want to get money without doing anything? Come back. You didn't say that boy was a mage's apprentice. If you ask for more money, I'll report it to the city guard and tell you that you paid to kill someone." "You." The two people were playing ping-pong together. Gretel knew nothing about this. He first went to the military camp to report the news that he had become a mage apprentice and that he would live in the mage tower permanently in the future. He then went to the temple of the god of war to inquire about the progress of making surgical instruments. "Not finished yet. Moreover, it looks like it will take another 10 days and a half. Do you want this? How long?" Gretel sighed until his lungs nearly burst out. "But starting from tomorrow, I will live in the mage tower." Yeah, I saw your mage robe, congratulations." The bald bishop laughed loudly. "Since we have to live in the mage tower forever, let's practice the treatment process you mentioned again." "No, I still want to go home. Stay in the temple tonight? Early tomorrow morning, I will send a carriage to take you to the mage tower." Gretel objected to no effect. The bald bishop stretched out his big hand, picked up the man and his mage robe, and carried him to the back hall like a chicken. Gretel was busy at the temple for half the night. The next morning, when the god of war temple sent a carriage to take him out of the city, he fell asleep completely in the carriage and couldn't bear to open his eyelids. Because of this, he didn't see two people pointing at the carriage not far from the city gate, with grim faces. He also didn't know that that night, a middle-aged woman entered the city lord's mansion, her face full of tears, and she cried loudly. "Roman is your son too? The temple locked him up, and you said you couldn't save him. You said you couldn't help a pariah boy who harmed him. Are you still the city lord of Heartland City? Do you still have him in your heart? Don't shout so loudly. It's not nice to shout about Roman's status." The city owner, Viscount Joan, had bags under his eyes and answered slowly. "That boy is a mage apprentice. He harmed Roman. My Roman. His hands are disabled." The middle-aged woman became even more excited, and her charming face was roaring out of shape. You also said that he is from the city guards, and that the god of war temple values him, but does not allow me to retaliate. You have dragged him back and forth, and now he has become a mage apprentice. It was so easy for me to find someone to beat him up. Don't even dare to take action. Did you find someone to beat him up? City Lord Qiaoan suddenly raised his eyelids. Idiot. Do you know why the city guards are protecting him? Why does the temple of the god of war value him? He has healed injuries that the bishop cannot. A healer can't offend him if he can. But my Roman. The woman mourned and wept. Viscount Joan sighed, patted her arm and comforted her softly. If it's for Roman, you shouldn't bother that kid. Do you know what that kid is doing recently? He is making a set of things that he says can cure Baron's hand. Baron's hand? The woman stopped crying immediately. Knight Baron's archery skills are second to none in Heartland City, but he injured his hand 3 years ago and was unable to draw a bow. That untouchable said it can be cured. The news from the god of war temple says that it can be cured. Viscount Qiaoan sighed. So, please be patient during this period and don't touch that kid. If Baron's hand can really be cured, I will go to the spring water temple and ask them to let Roman out to treat the hand injury. No matter how strict the temple is, it can't be cured. Do you want someone to treat your injuries? The woman gradually stopped crying. After thinking about it, I became a little panicked. What should I do if he refuses to be treated? Before. In the past, the other party was recruited to participate in the search, and the people were arrested and taken to the temple. One by one, they were all things that offended people. What if that untouchable has a grudge and refuses to be cured? So, why do you want to find someone to beat him up? Viscount Joan wanted to sigh again. However, the lover is one's own, and the son, even though he is an illegitimate son, is also one's own. Roman is still the only knight among the bastards, and he is usually quite lovable. If he can take care of him, he still has to take care of him. It's okay, I'm here, he comforted in a soft voice. If Baron's hand can't be cured, forget it. If it can be cured, I'll ask the god of war temple for help. With the temple and the city lord's palace here, that kid still dares not to treat it. Thanks to @screws for the 100 starting coins reward. Today is Wednesday. Please give me more support. I will see if I can ask the editor for recommendations. There are already 120,000 words. It will be too late if we don't test the water and promote it. Please collect it, ask for recommendation votes, ask for monthly votes, and ask for book reviews. Asking for various. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 57. Gretel's life was temporarily peaceful. He quietly nestled in the mage tower, reading books, memorizing dictionaries, and learning magic. 2 days later, the analysis of the spark technique was completed. 2 days later, the mage's hand was successfully released. The next days are about meditating to exercise mental strength and practicing the fine control of the mage's hand. And, most importantly, look for opportunities to release detection magic 3 times a day to see if you can find any magic light that can shine through the human body and reveal the bones. Half a month passed in a flash. Gretel was taken to the temple of the god of war again. This time, with the cooperation of priests and knights, he completed an operation that was unprecedented in the world. Right arm flexor carpi radialis tendon suture. Wearing a fake surgical gown that had been steamed for half an hour and just dried, and fake gloves made of sausage casings. There is an assistant on the opposite side and someone delivering equipment to the side. Above the head, in a large disc with a diameter of 1 meter, dots of white light shine downward. If you look closely, you will see that they are all lighting techniques released by priests on the spot. This is surgery. Compared to the disembowelment and intestine removal in the wilderness, the gap is huge. As expected, it's easy to enjoy the shade with the big tree at your back. Greet took a breath of the temple air happily. Well, the smell is not very good, there are too many people around, the body odor is a bit strong. Other priests, priest apprentices, and knights with sufficient qualifications and curiosity in the temple of the god of war, except those who helped him, all poured into the temple, carrying stools, tables, and tables to set up stools. They circled the operating table, forming 3 large circles from the inside to the outside, from low to high. Seeing them holding hands and stretching their necks to watch the operation, Gretel really wanted to say, "Don't fall down. Even if you fall, don't fall onto the operating table and interfere with my surgery. That's not all, not everyone can come in." Knight Flynn, Knight Ciro, and other friends of Knight Baron were all squeezed out of the hall, looking in eagerly on tiptoe. Flynn Knight even shouted, "Little Greet, please." "No." Gretel shouted back. Preparing the skin, disinfecting it with spirits, and tying the tourniquet, he did it all with his own hands and nodded to the bald bishop opposite. The bishop clasped his hands and murmured a prayer. "Almighty God of war, please have mercy on your believer and don't let him feel pain." As soon as he finished speaking, white light was like a grid, fixing Baron Knight on the operating table. The Lord Knight tilted his head and fell asleep almost immediately. Gretel. Even though it was not the first time he saw it, he still really wanted to ask. Is this a stick, hypnosis, or magical confinement? It doesn't matter what the method is. Anyway, I have tried it with live pigs several times before. During the operation, the pig did not struggle or move during the whole process, and its muscles did not even tighten. Perfect. When Greet was still a little worried and embarrassed to say it, the bald bishop called out more than 10 volunteers who were healthy, pious, and willing to test the knife with themselves. With magical anesthesia, the success rate of surgery is at least 30 percentage points higher. Greet nodded happily to both sides, lowered his eyes, and slashed with his knife. Good luck. Whether it's because the new scalpel is sharper or because magical anesthesia has reduced the skin's resistance. In short, the tight skin on Knight Baron's wrist split with the knife. Greet breathed a sigh of relief. Thank God, there is no situation where the skin cannot be cut with one knife. If it really comes to that point, where is his dignity as the chief surgeon? Although the temple knight who was going to kill him was already ready. After this cut, there was very little bleeding, almost just coming out slowly. There was a burst of surprised discussion around. Wow! There's so little bleeding. How did he do it? Hey, tell me, the bald bishop urged. The sound was muffled under the mask, like thunder. For the sake of the sponsor, Gretel started giving lectures to the group of bystanders. Pay attention to the depth of the knife. Only the skin is cut, and the underlying muscles and blood vessels are not cut. Of course, there will be no major bleeding. Retractor. 2 unknown priests on the left and right rushed forward, each holding a hook, and pulled the cut skin outward. The little freckled priest John stood at the patient's feet, and before Greet could speak, he brought up a pair of tweezers. Works well together. It was not in vain that I led them to train for several days. Greet took the forceps with satisfaction, avoiding the blood vessels and nerves on the patient's arm, and searched through the red muscles one by one. At the same time, count silently in your mind, 1, 2, 3. Vomit. Look, someone actually vomited. This is not okay, brothers, you are the god of war temple. You didn't even perform the surgery yourself, but you vomited just by looking at it. How can you save someone? Gretel, who was slandering like this, didn't even think about what he looked like when he vomited when he took the human anatomy class for the first time. Gretel rolled his eyes to the other side. Unexpectedly, there was no reaction from the other side. Looking again, the bald bishop's big head was turned to the side, and his cheeks were bulging under the thin mask. Hello. Greet barked softly. The bald bishop's Adam's apple rolled a few times and his chest heaved, as if he had swallowed something. Then, he finally raised his head and shouted like thunder. "Go out and puke." There was a boom. Gretel didn't look back. It sounded like the guy who vomited was thrown out of the circle directly from the table. "No, is your god of war temple so violent?" He continued cautiously. "Avoid blood vessels and nerves, and hook each muscle with a hook." Then he muttered a mantra, activated the mage's hand, and pulled it horizontally. "Can't pull it apart." According to basics of spells, the magic of mage's hand can move objects weighing no more than 5 pounds. At this moment, the force required to pull the hook seems to exceed 5 pounds. Gretel shook his head in a cold sweat, handed the hook to his assistants, and ordered them to pull it apart. He continued to lower his head and search, and found the retracted flexor carpi radialis muscle deep in the muscle layer, and clamped the end of the tendon with tissue tweezers. The operation went smoothly. Then Gretel finally encountered difficulties for the first time. I pull. I can't pull it. Damn it, the last time I did thoracentesis for decompression, I couldn't poke my chest, and this time when I stretched the tendons, I couldn't pull the muscles either. Are the knights of this world so physically powerful? Muscle relaxants, I need muscle relaxants. However, in this different world, where there is no pharmaceutical or chemical industry, there is no place to buy muscle relaxants if you have money. Greet glanced back subconsciously. In the previous life, the anesthetist should be in the direction where there were only stacks of tables, chairs, and a white-robed priest standing on them. As for the one who actually took on the responsibility of the anesthesiologist, Gretel had a flash of inspiration. He squeezed the middle part of the tweezers with his right hand, loosened it with his left hand, and pointed to the handle of the tweezers to the bald bishop. "Pinch this and pull back." I said stop, stop. 1, 2, 3. Hey, stop, stop, stop. I went to work as a knight for this Lord Bishop. I couldn't pull the flexor carpi radialis muscle, but he straightened it in an instant. Greet secretly shook off a cold sweat. Fortunately, the bald bishop made every command and movement, stopping whenever he said he wanted to, without stretching it another millimeter. His strong arm stabilized him and he gradually sorted out the ruptured tendon on the other end, trimmed the shape, and brought the two sides together. Then, raise your hands flat in front of your chest, with your palms facing outward, making the preparatory posture of a surgeon waiting for surgery. Concentrate your mind, and recite silently. Health depends on it, life depends on it. Little Greet, I finally have a surgical assistant again. Little Gretel said, please support me so that I can send red envelopes to my assistants. Please collect, recommend, book reviews, please vote for me. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Giolan 2020. Chapter 58. White light falls from the fingertips. The tendons that were broken into two parts squirmed and moved forward a little bit, as if they wanted to grow together. Gretel watched intently, secretly happy. Suturing has always been one of the difficulties in tendon surgery. The needles should be denser and sparser, and the threads should be looser and tighter, all of which will affect the healing effect. Not to mention 4-0 or 5-0, the smallest to 10-0 sutures must have sufficient tensile strength. For a curved needle with a diameter of 100 mu, the tip must be at an acute angle of 23 degrees, no more or less. The needle body must be bent into a perfect arc, but the cross-section must be square to facilitate the needle holder to hold it. The material used for the looper must have sufficient strength and toughness, and cannot be bent or deformed. With the level of industry in this world, Gretel didn't think they would be able to build it in another 10 years. But now there is a cure. No more sewing. There is no need to wear microscopes, and it will take 6 or 8 stitches to sew a blood vessel with a diameter of 1 mm. Although the sewing skills he had practiced hard on grapefruits, oranges, and grapes since college seemed to be useless, it was so cool. Under the white light, the tendons grow inward little by little. 1 strand, 2 strands. Stopped. No, the treatment amount is not enough. When I was doing simulated surgeries before, whether it was a pig or a sheep, it was easy to heal tendons. Gretel stopped and thought for a moment, guessing that the knight's vitality was stronger and the tendons needed more energy to heal. Well, let's do it again. The white light falls and the tendons grow. Stopped again. I still want to continue the treatment, but I already feel a little dizzy and my temples are throbbing with pain. Gretel has been very familiar with the state since becoming a mage apprentice. Her mental power has been exhausted to the limit, and she can no longer cast spells. Alas, low level is sad. Even a minor operation such as tendon suturing, one person cannot play the entire game. Gretel gave a decisive look. The chief surgeon does the most critical work and leaves everything else to the assistant. Bald bishop. It's time to take the field. The bishop is really powerful when he takes action. A very thin, very solid white light fell, and in a moment, the broken tendons had recovered as before, without any defects. Greet pulled it with the hook, and then pulled it again. The muscles were stretched, and the tendons were firmly connected to the muscles and bones, without any intention of breaking. How about it? Several voices asked at the same time. Greet observed it carefully again, raised his head and smiled. It should be fine. Pour the holy water. Rinse it from top to bottom. Sigh, although there is no normal saline rinse, antibiotic rinse, heparin saline rinse or anything like that, we have holy water rinse, so it's better than nothing. The advantage of working with the temple is that there are enough holy water pipes. Large pots of holy water were poured up, and then flowed to the ground. Gretel took a final look, confirmed that no small blood vessels were bleeding, and straightened up. Very good, the operation was successful. Do you know everything? No. A neat, confident voice. Outside the operating table, there was a circle of people standing on tables and benches, each shouting louder than the other. No, a low and trembling voice. Around the operating table, the priests and knights who had been selected to become assistants all lowered their heads and avoided Greet's gaze. I know how to pull the hook. Behind Greet, someone who didn't know who he was, muttered very quietly. Gretel rolled his eyes. You are very proud to know how to pull a hook, right? Better than others, right? Another day there will be an opportunity for you to hold the threaded iron rod in the wounded body and wait for the fire brigade to put on the saw. Don't move yet. Opposite him, the bald bishop who served as first aid glared at him hard. In the pair of eyes that resemble both Luzician and Zhongfei, the left eye says, no. On the right eye is written, you said I would teach you how to teach. Gretel couldn't help but laugh. He gave a be patient look and continued to give orders. Let go of the hook. Let go. Let go of what's in your hand, let go, let go. Okay, healing technique, heal the skin. The white light fell again. This time, what appeared in front of everyone was smooth and flawless skin without any wounds. Apart from all the hair being shaved off, it looks much cleaner than the other hand, with no trace of the surgery at all. Greet nodded with satisfaction. It's good to have treatment. Post-operative infection, poor healing, poor blood supply, etc., don't seem to need to be considered. He loosened the tourniquet with his own hands, observed the blood perfusion, and woke up from anesthesia. No, this is not the job of an anesthesiologist. Unlock the magic of imprisonment. Gretel's clear voice sounded. The white light quickly disappeared, and Knight Baron turned over and sat up, jumping off the operating table. Wow, this is much faster than waking up from anesthesia. I don't know if it hurts when the wrist is cut, or if there are any other feelings, remember to ask him later. Gretel was always afraid that the volunteers recruited by the bald bishop would not be reliable. You are too pious. If you are in pain but refuse to tell me, it will delay important events. Greet thought quickly. Knight Baron jumped off the operating table and immediately bent his wrist hard. Active. Can use force. I'm ready. Baron Knight roared. At that moment, Gretel even felt the hall trembling, the roof tiles shaking, and dust falling. What was even more frightening was that the Knight of Baron, who had just roared, turned around and hugged him. Greet took a step back reflexively. Wait. Wait. Let me see if your hands can be strong. Do a muscle strength test. Greet's voice grew louder and quieter, then slowly disappeared. Knight Baron looked both ways, then held the lower edge of the operating table with his right hand, his arm muscles flexed, and he lifted it hard. Didn't move. The operating table is built on the ground. Greet looked embarrassed. However, Knight Baron's expression remained unchanged. He stretched out his hand to grab a curved hook, held it tightly with his left hand, grabbed the curved part with his right hand, and pulled hard. Hey. Amidst the crunching sound of metal deforming, Gretel's carefully drawn and specially made hook made Knight Baron straighten it. No, this is mine. He looked at Knight Baron, who looked at him with innocence on his face. After a moment, the knight dropped the hook, rushed up and hugged Gretel hard, with tears flying. I'm fine. My hand is fine. My hand is fine. Gretel tried to turn his head to avoid the sound. Suddenly, his body felt light and he was thrown high into the air. Knight Baron, Knight Flynn, Knight Ciro, and a group of familiar temple knights were all busy below to catch him once, throw him once, catch him again, throw him again. Put me down. Put me down. Don't throw me here. There are scalpels here, help dash. In the temple, Greet's screams continued continuously, with a long aftertaste. Another day when new book collections don't grow as well as old books. It's another day when the manuscript I wrote yesterday needs to be revised today. I regularly ask for collections, recommendations, monthly votes, and book reviews. It's doubled at the end of the month. Everyone remember to vote for me, and remember to leave your monthly votes for next month to me. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 59. Have you heard? Knight Baron's hand is healed. Have you heard? The knight who injured his hand 3 years ago and can no longer draw his bow has his hand healed. It is said that it was cured by the god of war temple. It seems that the bishop cured him. Oh, you are so ill-informed. I heard that it is cured by a little guy. The bishop has to obey his orders and do whatever he says. The news that Baron Knight had recovered from his old injury spread like the wind in Heartland City. Those who have been injured themselves, those whose relatives have been injured, those whose treatment results are not satisfactory, no matter whether they are warriors or not, everyone is tempted. Even the city lord, Viscount Joan, summoned Knight Baron once and asked about his treatment process in detail. 3 days later, the bald bishop wrote to Gretel asking if the Roman knight's hand could be cured. The answer is negative. No doubt. He refuses to be treated. He actually refuses to be treated. The Roman knight roared in the room. He was imprisoned in the ascetic chamber just for the sake of it. Within 2 days of the gift being delivered, the great priest of the spring goddess released him, the kind of place where there is no light and no sound, and even the person who delivers the food does not speak, it is below the 10th level. After staying with the knights for half a month, one of them went crazy. Even so, he was not allowed to leave the temple, or even the apse, and could only reflect alone in a small room. If his mother's letters hadn't arrived frequently, he would have gone crazy. I want to kill him, I must kill him. Yes, write a letter. I will write a letter now and ask my mother to send someone to kill him. It can be said that this mother and son have a good understanding. The middle-aged woman, the mother of the Roman knight, was also roaring angrily in the city lord's palace at this moment. This time, she couldn't even maintain her superficial demeanor. She walked around in the small reception room of the city lord's mansion and threw the furnishings all over the floor. A pariah is a pariah. I am already magnanimous enough. As long as he cures Roman, I will not care about him. How dare this despicable guy not treat him? I will kill him. I must kill him. I didn't mean it. City Lord Chiao sighed. There was a stack of letter paper spread out in front of him, which was written by Gretel to Bishop Ares. The handwriting was dense and the drawings were detailed. Except for the fact that the picture makes me dizzy just looking at it, it is full of sincerity and informative. There are so many tendons in the palm, how many times thinner than the tendons in the wrist, and how many delicate instruments are needed to prevent the treatment from getting worse. In that letter, the description was clear, both written and drawn. The bald bishop probably had the idea of eliminating the disaster for Gretel, so he forwarded the letter to the city lord in its entirety without even deducting a page. Even if Viscount Jiaoan couldn't quite understand, he could still read between the lines. They really couldn't do it, it wasn't because they held a grudge against Roman and deliberately stood up. The mistress in front of me, or the angry mistress, was still making a fuss. Viscount Joan held his forehead in disgust. What are you going to do to kill him? He won't leave the mage tower at all. The middle-aged woman choked. No matter how unreasonable she is, she also knows that the mage tower cannot be moved casually, even if she is in charge of her son's knight leader, has a few 3rd and 4th level warriors in her hands, and can mobilize hundreds of peasant soldiers. This kind of power cannot be used in front of the mage tower. It's also a joke. I don't believe he will never come out. Don't do it. Viscount Jones slapped his hand on the table. After yelling, he quickly calmed down and tried to persuade his mistress. That kid is a healer. A healer. Even the bishop can't do anything about Knight Baron's injuries. He can cure them with just one move. How many people do you know who are counting on him to heal? How many people do you know, if they get hurt in the future, they wish they had someone there? Such a person? If you find someone to kill him and the matter is revealed, even I won't be able to protect you. But dash. There is no but. There is no but. For Roman's injury, let's find another healer, the archbishop, the high priest. No matter what, you are not allowed to do anything. The middle-aged woman cried hard and left in frustration. As soon as he got on the carriage, he immediately put away his tears and gritted his teeth and said to the housekeeper outside the carriage. Check. Check that untouchable for me. I don't believe it. I can't find any place to start. When the hostess spoke, the housekeeper did not dare to neglect and immediately hired someone to investigate. However, after searching around, I really can't find where to start. Gretel is alone, her father died young and her mother disappeared without a trace many years ago. The only people who could be considered acquaintances in the city were his father's former colleagues. However, to go to the city guards to attack Gretel, he was crazy. Madam, this. The butler stooped lower and lower. Creaking, you can feel the bones ringing. Ouch, my old waist, I have to go to the temple to worship some other time. Although I can't afford the money for treatment, I can touch a little holy light during worship, which can make people feel comfortable for a few days. The middle-aged woman's face became increasingly gloomy. She shook the fan gently, opening and closing the feather fan, closing and opening it again. The bright red kodan sank deeply into the feathers, as if trying to strangle the enemy's neck. There was a click and the fan bone was broken. The woman suddenly said, "That pariah is a healer." Yes. The divine inspirer of the god of nature. This, he said it himself, but it must be true. Whether it's the city guards or the temple guards, many people have heard it. Then why has he never gone to church? The housekeeper was speechless for a moment. The middle-aged woman suddenly stood up and walked back and forth in the room, her tone becoming more and more urgent. "That's right. That kid either stays in the mage tower or hangs out with the people from the god of war temple. He has never worshipped the god of nature in so many days. He has never been like those priests who always talk about the god of nature. For God's sake, he never says such things. He, the divine enlightener, must be fake. But, the god of nature, does not have a temple in the first place. The absence of a temple does not mean that there is no religious order. The worshippers of the god of nature walk in the streets. It is difficult to find them in the upper city, and it is also difficult to find them in the slums. If it really doesn't work, just find a hill outside the city, and if you build a ring of stones, you will definitely be able to squat down with the members of the religious group. The untouchable relied on healing skills. He first went to the temple of the god of war and then sold it to the city guards, but he never went to see anyone from the natural god cult. This divine enlightenment person of his is a sham and he has a guilty conscience. Click, click, several crisp sounds in succession. The bones of the feather fan were broken to pieces, and even a large piece of feathers on the fan was torn off. For a while, the room was filled with green and golden pieces, flying in pieces. The woman stepped on the floor loudly, her tone was excited and her eyes were shining. "Go to the deistic church. Tell them the news. No church can tolerate fake divine revelations. That is disrespectful and blasphemous. Let us pass the news over, and the deistic church will definitely kill that kid. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right?" Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 60. God of Nature? Greed had long forgotten this incident. These days, he was bored in the mage tower, learning magic like crazy. Meditate, memorize words, read basic textbooks, and learn magic. Magic is so fun. Hey, this dancing light technique can create 4 light sources that float everywhere. With a few more, wouldn't it be possible to rub shadowless lamps by hand? Hey, this freezing ray can artificially make ice, which is a must-have for cooling off in the summer. It's a pity that the temperature can't drop too low, otherwise. You can make very delicate ice cream. Hey, this flash spell is also very good, it can create strong light, but the casting material must use fireflies, which is too harmful to the ecology. I'll have to study it another day and see if it can be replaced with something else. Greet studied it with great enthusiasm. There are only 2 things that bother me. First, the growth of mental power has reached a bottleneck. After being able to cast spells 5 times a day, it is stuck there, unable to make any progress. Furthermore, there has been no progress in detecting magic, or in other words, research on X-ray technology. He ran up and down the mage tower and looked at every place he could see except the center. I searched like this, but I couldn't find the magic light that can illuminate the bones. I doubt my life every day. Are the physical laws of this world different from those of the previous life? Or do I have to find radioactive material? If radioactive material is really found, my small body can't handle it, right? He eats in the mage tower every day, lives in the mage tower, and studies in the mage tower. It's not just 2 points and 1 line, it's completely 1 point and 1 line. If you have a mobile phone with you and open it to look at the daily trajectory chart, you will only see a dot. What a comfort! What a dream! Happy life! This time, Greed was kicked out of the mage tower when he went out to inspect the nearby Tal village. This is property in the name of the mage tower, or strictly speaking, in the name of the Magic Council. Although you don't have to personally take care of rent collection, it is still very useful to send people around every month to declare the ownership of the village. Necessary. At the very least, the magician has to make an appearance in person. Naturally, this kind of drudgery that is not helpful for the study of magic fell to Gretel, who was the lowest in the hierarchy and the latest to become a mage's apprentice. Gretel rode an old horse, wandering around, and followed the gatekeeper to the village of Tar. The horses were docile and walked steadily, and Gretel didn't have to exert any effort at all. His eyes were blank and he was constantly distracted along the way. While walking, a scream suddenly came from the forest not far away. Gretel! There are people injured? Where? Is the injury serious? He ran away following the sound. When I got to the place, I saw a middle-aged man lying under the small cliff. He had a sallow face and thin muscles, and his left leg was unnaturally twisted. A rattan basket rolled down 5 or 6 steps away, and the rope tied around his waist was only about 1 meter long, with a rough end. The other end hung down from the cliff. It was obvious that the rope was worn on the rock while working on the cliff. High fall injury. Fracture of left leg. May be accompanied by fractures elsewhere, or rupture of internal organs. Gretel came to a conclusion at a glance. He squatted down next to the man and put one hand on the man's right wrist. Did you fall from above? Are you with any companions? Is your home nearby? The man nodded vigorously. He struggled to pull Greet's sleeve. Help me dash. Very good. The patient is conscious, has a strong pulse, and is breathing smoothly, indicating that his vital signs are temporarily stable. Greet glanced at the wounded man's left calf and saw that the white bone stubble had penetrated the skin and blood was pouring out. Open fracture, massive bleeding. Stop the bleeding first. Gretel instinctively jumped forward, stretched out his right hand, and firmly pressed the femoral artery of the injured person. Turning his head, he shouted to the mage tower servant. Is there a long cloth belt? No. Yes, 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 there was a series of chaotic footsteps. Several farmers carrying baskets and shovels stumbled down the side of the cliff. They were obviously the injured man's companions. One of them was still shouting while sliding. Laulu is injured. Go and call the master. Hurry. A farmer turned around and ran away. The other one heard Greet asking for a belt, and hurriedly tore it off on his body. With a brushing sound, he tore off a long cloth belt. Greet tugged. The thickness and strength could only be said to be better than nothing. He handed the rope back. Bring a wooden stick over here. As long as the thickness of your fingers is as long as one hand. Okay, put the wooden stick on his leg, where my fingers are, and tie it tightly with the cloth tape. Is it tight? Okay. Turn the wooden stick in a circle, one more turn. The hemp rope creaked. The injured screamed in pain and was held down by his companions. Don't move, don't move. Your leg, hey, there is less blood. Little sir, that's awesome. What little gentleman? It's Mr. Master. A farmer saw the wand on Greet's sleeve with sharp eyes and corrected his companion. The farmer who was tightening the sticks shook his hands and almost fell into the mud. FMR Master. Don't move. Keep your hands tight, Gretel shouted to him. After shouting, he lay down and felt at the distal end of the artery. After confirming that he could no longer feel the pulse, he ordered the person holding the wooden stick. Hold tight. Don't move. Call me if the straps come loose. MD. There is no rotating tourniquet, so I have to make do with it. The farmer tremblingly agreed. Gretel ignored him and asked others to lay the injured man down and take off his clothes. He squatted beside him and asked the injured and his companions. How did he fall? Did he fall vertically or rolled sideways? Where hits the ground first? Hands, legs, or back? Did you fall down on your stomach or on your back? The injured man and several companions answered one by one. Gretel got the answer he wanted. Seeing that the injured man had almost taken off his clothes, he began to check carefully. There were no other obvious wounds on the body surface. Abdominal pressure, no obvious pain in left upper quadrant, left middle abdomen, right upper quadrant. As soon as I checked here, there was a lot of smoke and the sound of footsteps on the mountain road not far away. Greed turned his head and glanced in his busy schedule, and saw an old man with white hair coming, holding a wooden stick in one hand and the farmer who had gone to call for help in the other hand. The old man rushed over, so fast that even his dark brown linen robe was raised high back. The man weighing 180 pounds seemed like nothing in his hand. This old man is awesome. Greed secretly praised in her heart. Around him, several farmers bowed their heads in varying salutes. Elder! Elder! Elder, save me! Save me! The injured struggled hard. Greed yelled at him, used his right hand to push the man back to the ground, and continued to lower his head to check. Who are you? The old man had already reached his side, put down the farmer, and lowered his head to check on the injured. Gretel didn't even raise his head. Gretel Nordmark. Are you Gretel? The old man's voice fluctuated slightly. Without waiting for Greed to answer, he squatted down again and pressed the skin next to the tourniquet of the injured person. Did you get this stick? What a great idea. Okay, get out of the way now and let me heal this leg. Can a fracture be cured with just one treatment? This is much better than me. Greed looked sideways. However, when he saw the old man reaching out to pull him, he instinctively hid and shouted. Don't touch him. The old man was startled. Gretel's rebuttals came out like a barrage. I haven't finished the examination yet. Treat him now. Do you know if his internal organs are injured? The old man was stunned. After a moment of silence, he asked. I have also treated people who broke their legs. Sometimes the legs are healed, but 2 days later the person dies. Is it because the internal organs were injured? It's possible. Greed murmured. There are many causes of death due to high fall injuries, including visceral rupture, brain damage, and even aortic dissection due to bad luck. I have never seen a patient, so who knows what kind of situation you may encounter. Then what do you think? It's Friday and it's the end of the month. Please give me the tickets you have saved as soon as possible. Please recommend, please collect, please invest, please give me a monthly ticket. Request a guaranteed monthly pass for next month in advance.